Hey everybody, this is John Franklin Reviewer and welcome to my Leprechaun ranking from worst to best. If you're just joining me on this ranking video now, I actually have reviewed all 8 individual movies, so after this is done, if you are interested, you can always go back and check those ones out. And for anybody who actually has been following me throughout this entire series, thank you so much for checking out the video. Thank you so much for commenting or even giving me a like. I do appreciate all of you out there. Also, I'd like to kind of know what your ranking is from worst to best. Give me a comment down below. And even though it's only 8 of them, but if you haven't seen them all, maybe even just give me your favorite and give me your worst. And who knows, we may all kind of agree on the worst. Could be wrong about that. We shall see. So let's get ourselves started. Number 8, the worst of the worst, probably will not be a surprise, is Leprechaun Origins. What a piece of shit movie this is. There's like really one good thing in this movie. It's a really cool, surprisingly well executed death. Other than that, everything else, I hated. I didn't care for the 4 friends in this movie here. None of them were very interesting. There were supposed to be 2 couples, and they felt like they were more frenemies than anything else. I didn't care for the father and son. A few times there's a cat and mouse game with the 4 friends and the father and son, and it just gets really ridiculous there. The leprechaun itself is not a damn leprechaun. It's like something from a fantasy movie like Lord of the Rings. I didn't care for the kills in this. I didn't care for the story. I didn't think this was directed very well. Number 7 is going to be Leprechaun in the Hood. Now, the things I actually like about this is actually 2 really cool deaths. There's one at the beginning that I think is my favorite, and there's one about an hour into the movie. I thought, holy shit, I didn't realize a leprechaun could do something like that there. Ice-T is really good. Warwick Davis as the leprechaun is really good. And let me just kind of get this out of the way now. All the rest of the leprechauns, which is mostly the Warwick Davis and then the one from Leprechaun Returns, I liked all their makeup. I don't want to kind of keep repeating the same thing if I can help it on that. But on the flip side, the 3 friends that we follow who are singers trying to leave the hood to go to Vegas to win a contest and to actually hit it big in the music industry, I did not care about any of them. I was not interested in any of them. The side characters I was not a big fan of. I almost really wish this was more of an Ice-T versus Leprechaun movie. But you see them, but they feel like they're more in the background because it's about these 3 guys here. The leprechaun rapping, I don't care that much for. Another one that the deaths are actually pretty weak in this. Before I forget, the golden flute is the main thing about this. Not the pot of gold, just the golden flute. And I always thought that was actually a really stupid thing. Number 6, surprisingly enough, is going to be Leprechaun Back to the Hood, which is the 6th movie in this franchise. What I really like about this movie is I like the animation style that they do at the very beginning of this movie, maybe the first 2-3 minutes. I do like Emily and Lisa. These are 2 female leads. When they work together a decent amount, they actually have great chemistry together. You actually believe that they could be best friends. They both work in a beauty shop. They are both trying to better themselves by both going back to school and see what else they can do. It's almost as similar as the rappers from Leprechaun in the Hood here, where these girls want to get out, but for some reason I actually want to follow their story a little bit more than the 3 guys from Leprechaun in the Hood. I actually do think that the pot of gold, I'm glad that they brought that back compared to that golden flute. I'm sorry, that's one thing I always hate about Leprechaun in the Hood is that stupid golden flute and not just the pot of gold. But on the flip side, you got Rory and Jamie, who are the 2 male leads in this. And I'll give Rory a little credit, especially in Act 3, where I feel like he starts actually doing a little bit of some kind of acting in that. But between both of them there, I'm just not really still a big fan of either one of them. I just think overall they're very dull. Definitely not characters I'd really want to follow. Warwick Davis, I wish he was a lot better in this. I mean, again, Warwick Davis did the best he can as the leprechaun. But the only thing is what the script told him to do. Pretty much he had to get his butt kicked many times, which I thought was really, really stupid. There's even one time that something actually happened after he smokes a little weed. He ends up in the kitchen of, I think it's Jamie's house or apartment. And just some stupid stuff that actually happens there. The deaths in this were pretty bad. And Act 3 actually goes a little too long for me. At least it goes at least an extra 5 minutes longer than it actually should have. Number 5 is going to be Leprechaun 2. Now, I'm actually surprised I even put this in just barely the top 5 here, because if you saw my review, I swear that I ripped this movie a new asshole. I was not a big fan of this movie one bit. But the reason why I have it where it is just because seeing the Leprechaun in the Hood, especially twice, and of course Origins Forget It, they were just movies I just don't really care that much about. And believe it or not, this movie does have some entertainment value to it. I like the beginning of the movie, the first like 5 minutes or so, with Leprechaun and his slave both just kind of having a ball. I mean, the slave's still on the serious side, but there is one time where the Leprechaun's laughing and making jokes, and the slave's just rolling his eyes thinking, what the hell did I do? Why did I even try to go after your pot of gold? And I've been your slave for an X amount of like months and years now. Warwick Davis is chewing up the scenery in this one more than he did in the first Leprechaun there. I thought that was really cool. I definitely do enjoy some of the unique deaths in here. I'm not saying they're the greatest, but there's some cool ones there. And there's one that's kind of in a coffee shop that is one of my favorites. I really, really did like. Morty, who is a con man in this movie, he's just a fun, lovable guy. I just have fun with this guy. I really do enjoy him. But on the flip side, we got to talk about Bridget. It's just, her acting is horrible as hell. Probably got to be the worst actress out of everybody in this entire series here. You got Cody, who's actually her boyfriend. He starts off okay, but then he just kind of gets worse and worse. He never gets up to like Bridget bad acting, but then after a while, you're just not interested in his character and what's actually going on with him. The story could have been a little bit better. I thought it could have been directed a lot better there too. And there is a scene with Morty and Leprechaun, which I do like them, but there's actually a scene where they're both in a bar and they're doing a drinking game. And I just like, that is ridiculous. I just, all I can do is just shake my head and roll my eyes at the same time. And number 4 is going to be Leprechaun 1. I know this might be a surprise to people, but I thought this was a good place for it here. What I enjoy about this movie is, on some of the characters, I like Ozzy and I like Alex. They're actually fun characters to follow throughout this movie. Warwick Davis as the Leprechaun. He is great when he actually needs to be here. He's scary. I like a lot of his one-liners. I think his humor really does work. I like his kills in this movie. But on the flip side, I don't like the character Tori, played by Jennifer Aniston. She's nothing but a bitch to everybody. Like, it's all about me kind of character, and I can't stand characters like that. Horror movies or other genres. There's a character named Nate, or Nathan, who is actually Alex's older brother. At first, he starts off pretty good. I like this guy. But then in the second half, they just make him really boring. It's such a generic first horror movie, which doesn't really bother me that much. It's still somewhat entertaining. The story is okay at best, just being in the one setting of the farmhouse here. Not much gore. And there's also a ripoff of the first Nightmare on Elm Street that I thought, well, I'll bet you they were trying to do a tribute, but it felt like it was such a ripoff. Number 3 is going to be Leprechaun 4 in Space. Yes, I actually enjoy this movie. I have a blast. My top 3 are definitely movies I could watch way more than any of the ones that I actually just mentioned. I like a lot of the characters in here. I like Books, one of the military guys. I like following him. He's a good actor. He's just fun to actually watch. I like a lot of his action scenes against the Leprechaun. Also, another one is Styx. He's the comic relief. Plus, he's also the same actor who was in Friday the 13th Part 5. He's in this movie more than in Jason 5. So I'm a lot more entertained with this character. Warwick Davis as the Leprechaun. Enjoy this guy. Once again, he's another character having a blast. If he's having a blast, I'm having a blast, and he's doing it for the fans, so it's really good to actually see that he's not phoning this character in, and I don't think he ever really actually does. I enjoy the kills in this movie, but on the flip side, the Leprechaun's resurrection, oh shit, probably worse than Freddy Krueger's resurrection from Part 4. They do the bride story again, which I don't know, why would you go back to that? Well, you got Sarge, and the big thing with him, I like the actor, but they have a metal plate on the side of his head, and it's not blended in really well, so it's very distracting. You got this scientist, Dr. Middenham, or Hand or something. What they do to this character throughout the movie is just so ridiculous. And they hardly ever talk about the gold in this movie. And number 2 is going to be Leprechaun 3. Well, on the good side, this being set in Las Vegas with the casinos and people being greedy and trying to be rich, perfect setting for a Leprechaun movie. Warwick Davis is having, once again, a blast. He's, enjoying what he actually loves to do, which is actually killing. And I really have fun with his rhymes, and his dialogue is really good in this. You got Scott, one of the nicest characters in this franchise. I like following his story. I just enjoy him overall. Just kind of that, I'm a nice guy, but I want to kind of see what a casino looks like and kind of screw up a little bit and try to redeem himself if he can later, which I do like that there. You got Tammy, the only character I feel like in this entire movie who doesn't believe in greed. She just wants to go to work and go home, and then she's got to pay her bills and just happy that she has a roof over her head. I actually like following her story a little bit more than Scott. I definitely enjoy the kills. I enjoy the jokes. And I forgot to mention this in my review. I didn't want to screw up this time, is that Caroline Williams, if you're a horror fan, you know her fame. I mean, I only seen her in this movie and in Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2, but she's been in a lot of other movies that people have actually mentioned that she's actually good in. So she is actually really wonderful in this movie. But on the flip side, the Leprechaun, when we first see him, he ends up in a pawn shop with a pawn shop owner, and it feels like it takes like a half an hour that he's in there before he finally kills this guy. And I understand why, because there's this medallion that the guy actually, there's a guy that brought it in and the owner ended up having, and kind of scares the Leprechaun away, but it just still feels like it took way too long for the Leprechaun to leave that pawn shop to get to the casino and do what he wanted to do at that particular casino. The character Scott that I mentioned, there's something that actually happens throughout this movie, and when we get to the second half of what they do, and even though I'm still entertained by this character somewhat, I don't like what they actually do to that character in the second half. And then there's actually an elevator scene that every time I see that scene when I watch this movie is got to be stupid as hell. I get the point what they were doing. I just think it was really that stupid. And my number 1 is Leprechaun Returns. Yes, the newest one in the franchise. And the first time that I could remember in my ranking video that I ever have the newest one as number 1. I love the hell out of this movie here. I enjoy the direction. I enjoy the story. The character's acting is really good. I am laughing a lot in this movie. The jokes land for me. The Leprechaun, the newest actor playing Leprechaun, he does a fantastic job as Leprechaun, no matter if he's trying to be his own or try to do an impersonation of Warwick Davis. I have a lot of fun watching what this guy's going to do. Lila, our main character we follow, I definitely love following this character. Her acting is really good. Her acting is believable throughout. Bringing back Ozzy was really actually awesome from the original here. And he's only sprinkled in this movie here or there. But I do think that the first half of the movie is okay with him. I enjoy him more in the second half of the movie. And the biggest thing is that I laugh my ass off every time I watch this movie. And that's why I have it at number 1. Because I feel like out of all the Leprechaun movies, this is the one that I'm like, I love what's going on in this movie throughout. And I forgot to also mention in my review, just like I did with Caroline Williams, is that this is a movie that's supposed to take place 25 years after the original and supposed to be the direct sequel to the original. I do actually like that part there too. Now on the flip side, no matter if I mention the character or not, all the characters in here, or most of them, are actually one-noted. So that's definitely part of the bad writing there, where you got this character being this and this character being that throughout the entire movie. And that's not really good character development at all when you just stick them, this is what they're going to be and they're never going to change. 2 different characters at 2 different times take a picture with the Leprechaun. I don't know if they just think that he doesn't exist, like it's a figment of their imagination or what. The first time I ever saw it, I kind of chuckled and smiled at it, but I just think it's actually really stupid. And thinking about stupid, one of the biggest tropes I hate is jump scares. I understand if it makes sense if you show the villain and it's like, okay, well, you might get away from that villain, or he's going to get you right away. But when they do a lot of jump scares in this movie that felt like they were very unnecessary. So there is my ranking of the Leprechaun movies. Thank you for watching if you got all the way to the end of this video. And you guys have yourselves a good one, and I will see you guys in the next video, whenever that will be. Bye.